The Super Bowl is Sunday. It's the Chiefs and the Eagles. Ryan Wilson, our friend from CBS Sports.com, wears two hats. I don't know if he wears any hats, but I know he does two different things. He concentrates on the draft, and he also follows the National Football League. Let's start with the draft and the prospects. Mr. Wilson, how are you? I hope life is good for you. What jumped out at you at the Senior Bowl?
Hey, Adam, good to talk to you, buddy. Yeah, I'm surviving. We were down to the Senior Bowl, and the week before that, we were at the Shrine Bowl, so we saw a ton of kids, and I'm laughing because as Victoria called me, I was still working my way through trying to watch all these prospects. And, yeah, so Jackson Dart's going to be a thing.
Yeah.
And he had a big week down there last week in Mobile, the Ole Miss quarterback, who, if we're being realistic, is probably a day two guy, but we'll see if he gets the Kenny Pickett treatment and gets pushed up. A handful of his teammates, and they all said leadership-wise, it's through the roof. And Rick Spielman has said the same thing when talking to some folks around the league as well. So that's going to be a big thing. And had a good season, but the question becomes, after the top two quarterbacks, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, how far are teams willing to go in order to push that envelope? On the other end of the spectrum, Jalen Milroe struggled a little bit. This is a thing we're going to have to talk about too, Adam. He has small hands. That was the Kenny Pickett syndrome as well. They were under 9 inches, and that's sort of the measuring stick.
Wasn't that the Jared Goff problem too, all the way back in the day?
That was the Jared Goff problem. Turns out Jared Goff can play with tiny hands. And Joe Burrow tweeted out the same thing during his year after he got into the league when someone else had tiny hands. So it's not the end of the world, but it's something that we have to talk about. And he struggled was the bigger issue. I wanted to come see him go down to the Senior Bowl and sort of separate himself, and that didn't happen. But here's what I'll say. A year ago, Michael Penix Jr. and Bo Nix were there. Neither one of them separated themselves. Both of those guys were top 12 picks. So there's a ways to go.
All right. Are either Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, if we were drafting quarterbacks like regular players, are either of them worthy of the first overall pick?
No. And I'm sort of hesitating because if we're just talking best overall pick, it's Travis Hunter.
Right.
And if we're talking second best player, it's probably Abdul Carter. Third best player is probably Mason Graham. One's an edge rusher and the other one's a defensive tackle. Yeah. 3 defensive guys or 2.5 defensive guys and Travis Hunter who can play on both sides. But the most important position is quarterbacks, so those guys get pushed up. And I think you and I talked about this before. If Cam or Shedeur were in last year's draft class, they're probably QB no better than QB4, probably QB5.
Yeah.
So that's just the reality of it. But Travis Hunter, unfortunately, doesn't play quarterback, and that's why he'll probably slip a little bit. Now, by slip a little bit, I mean he's probably still in the top 5. I can't imagine he gets past the Raiders at 6 if he happened to fall that far. But he's the best player in this draft class.
Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports.com, is joining us with the First Pick podcast he does with Rick Spielman. All right, so in terms of local players, I know Anthony Belton raised a lot of eyes, former NC State offensive tackle. And I also have heard that who's the lineman, Willie Lampkin from Carolina.
Oh, my favorite player in this whole draft.
Really? In the entire draft?
He's us. Willie Lampkin represents all of us.
Okay.
5'10", 270, 32-inch arms, which if you measure that out to like 6'8", he has like the longest arms on planet Earth. So he has some long arms for his size. And there's nothing more exciting to me than watching your left guard at UNC be smaller than your running back in Omarion Hampton. And he came down to Mobile and he played with an edge, and it's going to look, man, the reality is it's going to be tough to be a 5'10", 270-pound offensive lineman. He got some work at center, but that kid, there's no one with a bigger heart, and he's got some juice, man. He plays with an edge. And now listen, if you stood him next to Belton, it looks like one's the great-grandfather and the other one's the toddler going off to school. But they played on the same offensive line, and it's a fun story. I thought Belton had a good week as well. His future may be inside. He's such an enormous human being, and I think he moves pretty well for his size. But at the next level, when you're going from ACC to NFL, it might be a situation where your immediate path to getting more playing time is probably moving inside the guard. But he had some good reps in the one-on-one drills, which at the end of the day don't mean much, but it gives you an idea of how these guys move in space.
If you were the Panthers and you had your pick of the defensive players, and obviously you're not going to get Travis Hunter at number 8. But with Hunter off the board, with all the quarterbacks off the board, because who knows that there might even be a third quarterback taken. I have no idea. At number 8, if you've got Graham there, or who's the Walker kid? Was it from Florida? Is it?
Mikael Walker out of
Georgia.
Jalen Walker, excuse me, out of Georgia.
If that kid, if who's the best player for what the Panthers need?
Well, I mean, Mason Graham next to Derrick Brown has me intrigued. That's some juice on the inside. If you're looking to get some edge rush help, and they moved on from Brian Burns, I don't think Abdul Carter would be there. That would be mildly surprising, but he's a juiced up former off-ball linebacker, sort of the Michael Parsons path. He was the edge rusher. James Pierce out of Tennessee has some juice. He played about 245-ish, I think, last fall, but he plays much bigger than that. Michael Williams out of Georgia is a guy whose best football is going to be ahead of him, but he's one of these high-end Georgia edge rush athletes that can just go for days. There's going to be, Adam, there's so much depth along the defensive line and edge rush position that you could, even if Carolina, you could trade down 5 or 6 or 7 spots and maybe even more and get some more draft picks if that's what Dan Morgan wants to do, and you're going to get a similar type player. This class is so sickeningly deep on the defensive side of the ball. Because people are angry about the quarterback situation, but there's going to be a lot of fun guys taken in this draft.
Yeah, I think maybe this is another opportunity for the Panthers to trade back a little bit at I don't know, maybe not in the first round, but maybe in the second round, even into the third round. They have their own third round pick. I think they have the Rams' second round pick. That's not going to be early. Maybe they trade back there. Let me get to the Super Bowl. I know you're aware that there is a Super Bowl. The Chiefs are playing in it again. That is a surprise for nobody. So you're if you're the Eagles, do you feel like you have to run the ball well to win, or are you going to have to be able to throw it because the Chiefs aren't going to let you run it?
Yeah, you got to run the ball. I mean, Saquon is the reason you're there, and Jalen Hurts to a lesser degree, but you don't want Jalen taking a ton of hits. And, this is a situation that happened with the Ravens a year ago in the playoff game against the Chiefs. They got away from running the ball, and they lost. And then they lean into the run early on in the playoffs this year, and they look like the Ravens with Derrick Henry. And I think that's exactly what you have to do, even if you're unsuccessful early, because the good news about this Eagles team is that Vic Fangio has done such a great job with the defense, and Howie Roseman has done such a great job drafting guys, athletic specimens to play in this defense. They have 2 rookies balling out in the secondary. Mm-hmm. And I think that you have to have the sense that, look, man, we might go 3 and out trying to establish a run, but we'll get the ball back. We have dudes at every level on defense. And for as good as the Chiefs are in January, they weren't great for the first 2/3 of the season offensively. There were some fits and starts to that offense, and they've obviously turned into the Chiefs, and that surprises no one. But I think that you can't get away from what you do well. Even if you're down 10-0, I think every single Super Bowl wasn't Patrick Mahomes down double digits and they came back. So you can't let that be the end of the world. You have to sort of dance with who you brought, and that is Saquon Barkley, who can be a game changer. I think you have to continue to lean into that.
Yeah, it's getting 10 points down is like Mahomes is almost undefeated when he's 10 points in arrears at some point during the game, which is really one of the dumbest stats ever. I mean, not dumb in that it's a bad stat. It's just that, like, it's hard to believe that you're, not that you're better, but that it doesn't matter. And maybe it doesn't when you're that good and you've got the best coach around. I mean, Andy Reid is probably going to end up on the very short list of the greatest coaches in the history of the National Football League for as long as he keeps doing it. Do you subscribe to the theory that the Eagles have the best roster?
No, only because of the name you mentioned and the name that you mentioned who plays quarterback for him.
Right.
Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, right? So, and look, man, there are no slouches on that Steve Spagnuolo defense as well for Kansas City. But, I mean, look, if you take the quarterbacks out of it, Jalen Hurts is a really good quarterback. Yes, the Eagles have the best roster, but a great quarterback makes up for a lot of other blemishes, and we've seen that time and time again with Patrick Mahomes. I did find it somewhat funny that the officials were super pumped that Roger Goodell came out and said that the officials are not cheating in fact, for the Kansas City Chiefs. I didn't know that had to be said out loud.
Right.
But that's where we are in this journey, which now the Chiefs have turned into the Tom Brady Patriots and the Derrick Jeter Yankees in terms of hatred by everyone.
Do you think the Chiefs got the benefit of the doubt on, like, which of those two calls? Do you think they ultimately got them both right?
Which calls are you talking about in particular? I've been sort of tuned out with draft coverage. Are you talking about the Bills game draft?
Yeah, the interception and the first down.
That didn't bother me so much. That's fine. I'm not mad at that. I'm more. I understand where fans' irritation comes in when it's about the roughing the passer calls that Patrick Mahomes seems to get, or the flop. And Josh Allen is guilty of this as well. The flopping around irritates me to no end. They're just trying to debate the referees into setting themselves up to be in a bad position. I think we could clamp down on flopping sort of like we do in professional soccer, but no one cares what I think about that. I think I understand fans' irritation, but as the old thing goes, Adam, in order for a conspiracy to work, everyone has to be in on it, and we're all too dumb to make that work.
So the whole flopping thing, the whole trying to draw calls, if it didn't work, nobody'd do it.
Right.
Because it just makes you look bad.
Absolutely.
All right, let me dig in one more thing about this game, because I think underreported in all of this is that the Chiefs look like they're about as fully operational at wideout as they're going to be. They got big plays out of Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, who made that catch that should have been an interception, and ultimately he stole it. I thought that was the right call. The ball hit the ground, but I don't think it didn't move. I don't think it helped him make the catch or steal the ball. And then, Travis Kelce was hardly used in the game. He should be fresh for this Super Bowl. What's going to be more difficult for Philadelphia to stop?
That's a great question, because Quinyon Mitchell outside has been playing out of his mind. Coop DeJean, the second round pick rookie, has been playing really well in the slot. So you would imagine it would be trying to slow down Travis Kelce, but is he 80% of what he's been in recent years? And to your point, usually the bubble wrap comes off in January. They sort of slow play him until then, and then he goes crazy. But I think the full complement, or close to the full complement of wide receivers is a real concern. Now, I think there's no secondary better equipped to handle it than Philadelphia, but that doesn't mean it's still not a concern, because you have a lot of speed with Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown out there, and even if you want to call them secondary options in the Noah Grays of the world, of the Justin Watsons, those guys get open, and Patrick Mahomes finds them. So I think it's going to be a pick your poison situation. You want to stop Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown winning down the field, which means Travis has a chance to be open, and you're going to have to dink and dunk your way down the field. And Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are happy to do that. And I would imagine Vic Fangio prefers that to just hitting home run after home run with the deep ball.
And the truth is that Kansas City doesn't even throw the ball deep down the field. Right? I can't remember the last time I saw them really air it out. Everything is short. A lot of stuff behind the line of scrimmage. You guys are always wide open. That's the greatest play designs I think I've ever seen. Ryan Wilson, CBSSports.com. With the First Pick podcast with Rick Spielman. Enjoy. Who you're picking in the game?
It's hard not to go with the Chiefs. I think they're gonna repeat. I thought the Bills had a chance to win 10 days ago, and here we are for number 3.
Yes, both teams are somehow villains, Ryan. I didn't know I didn't know we could have 2 villains. I don't know if you watch professional wrestling. I don't. I think this is like The Undertaker versus Triple H. If those were 2 villains at the same time, I don't even know the rules. So.
I love it. And by the way, this is a great problem to have, and I'm sure Panthers fans would love to be known as the villains at this point. So that's something to aspire to.
Exactly. Ryan, thank you very much, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Adam.